Welcome back to Pace Immigration, paceimmigration.com, talking once again with immigration lawyer Andy Semichuk. Andy, always good to see you.
Hi, Sean. Good to see you as well.
Yeah, today we're talking about immigration work visas for Patels buying hotels in the United States. Andy, explain that title a little bit for the uninitiated.
Okay, 80% of all hotels in the United States, believe it or not, are owned by Patels, people who are from India, from Gujarat, India, and whose name is Patel. It's unbelievable, but that's the way it is. And they're very good at hotels. So that's why this topic today.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. People might be asking, well, how do you get immigration status to purchase hotels in the United States anyway?
Okay, so there are a variety of ways. We're going to talk probably more about them, but generally you need an immigration visa, which you're going to apply for. And having the visa, you get entry into the United States so that you can run a hotel. But really, the way things operate for the most part, especially for Canadians, Canadian Patels who are going into the United States, is they pretty much buy the hotel first, and then we arrange the visa for them as part of the purchase.
Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of the options here that you gave me via email, and we're going to go over the basics
right
quickly here. We've got E2 visa basics. This is the E2 treaty trader visa. Andy, talk about it.
Okay, so there's a free trade agreement between the United States and Canada, and this is the way that Patels are going to the United States. Now, the first thing is they have to be a Canadian citizen because it's for citizens. But a lot of the Patels are Canadian citizens, and I'm thinking mainly of Patels in Canada with respect to this video. So they have to be a national of a treaty country, that is to say Canadian. They have to make an investment of a substantial amount of money. In the case of a hotel, whatever hotel you're buying, it's likely to be a substantial amount. But I'm thinking like at least $100,000 for a very small hotel or whatever. And they're coming to develop and direct. Those are the magic words. They're going to be basically running or at least in charge of the hotel. And of course, at the end of their period of authorized stay, they have to go back to Canada. And basically, it has to be a business that generates more than enough money to just support the Patel family. You have to have some employees. It's either employees you have to have, or you bring in a lot of money. A lot of money might be like $10 million, or you're bringing in some kind of new idea that is unique that will get you the E2 visa.
Okay, let's step back just for a bit. I just wanted to cover this really quickly for people that don't know. Develop and direct. So this is not a passive investment. It's not like buying a hotel and then you're just putting your feet up.
Correct. They have to be engaged, but the level of engagement is reasonable. So, for example, people travel back and forth to Canada on E2 visas. Maybe they have, family in Canada or whatever, but their principal task is to look after the business in the hotel. It's less stringent than some of the other visas in terms of involvement.
Okay, and I also highlighted here, intend to leave the U.S. So this is not saying once you get there in a couple of years, you've got to split. It's that, this is what they call in the United States a non-immigrant visa.
Yes, it is. And the basic intent you can look after by just writing a letter saying, yes, at the end of my period of authorized stay, I will be returning to Canada. That's the way pretty much we handle that aspect.
Right, but the visa is still renewable, so you can stay in the United States past several years.
It is. Usually it's 5 years, and you renew for 5-year increments for as long as you have a business.
Okay, next question for you on this one, and we'll cover that in our next slide as well. But when it comes to the E2 visa, what about spouse and kids?
Spouse and kids come with you. The principal applicant is the E2 principal person who's putting in the money. The spouse gets a open work permit to do anything they want in the United States work-wise, and the children can go to school. They are authorized to go to school.
Okay, let's carry on to the next option. That was the E2. Here we have the alphabet soup continuing of immigration law as always. Now we have the L1, and we're going to go over the visa basics of this one. This one involves, it's a little bit different. It's not necessarily an investor putting their skin in the game as an owner or a director. This is more of an employee, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah, executive, a manager, or a specialized knowledge worker would be eligible to get an L1 visa. This operates only when you have a business outside the US and you're transferring a manager, usually it's a manager, into the US to run a new or existing business, which is owned by the business abroad. It's either owned directly by the business abroad. So, for example, let's say a Canadian business, Tim Hortons, decides to open up a Tim Hortons in the United States. The manager of the Toronto Tim Hortons is transferred to, let's say, New York, where there's going to be a Tim Hortons restaurant. That's a classic L1 intra-corporate transferee visa.
Okay.
And the key thing, as you've got in the slide here, is that the person who's being transferred has to show that for at least 1 year in the last 3 years, they worked as a manager in the foreign, that is to say Canadian, let's say Tim Hortons restaurant, in order to be eligible to be transferred to run the US Tim Hortons in the case of our example.
Right. In other words, I mean, it's not like a case where the company can hire you and just send you to the United States. You have to have been a part of that company for at least a year in the 3 years previous.
That's critical to the visa. Okay. Note that this visa you can get right at the border. You don't have to go through the US consulate like you do with the E2 visa. So you get it right at the border, and it's like you've marked here 3 years and renewable for up to 7 years. The L1 visa, it's a visa you can get at the border for 3 years. If everything is good, maybe in a startup case, it may be only for 1 year to start if they're a little dubious or doubtful about whether the business is for real or there's some issue. But usually it'll be a 3-year visa.
Right. 3 years renewable, like we said with the previous one. We've also mentioned that you have to be an executive, a manager, or have specialized knowledge. This isn't a case of sending over, you want someone who's a friend of yours to be a cashier there.
No. Yeah, that's too low level. Specialized knowledge, in particular, workers are people who have special knowledge of the business that's not generally available in the marketplace. So some kind of a copyrighted product, for example, might be example of someone who knows how to run a copyrighted product. It's like a IT program of some kind, for example.
Right. This is similar to the E2 in the sense that the E2 is, those countries have to be part of a treaty with the United States, and we concentrate mainly on Canada. The L1 is basically the same?
The same, except the L1 visas are not necessarily tied to a free trade agreement. You can get an L1 visa. By the way, these videos also apply to other countries who have trade agreements with the United States. There may be Patels somewhere in France or some other country who could follow these same rules and get into the US.
Right. Okay, let's carry on. So let's see. Oh, and while I'm at it, the L1, how does that work with the spouse and kids?
Same deal like I talked about the E2. Spouse gets a open work permit. Kids can go to school.
Right. You're very hot for the L1, I know. You like the L1 a lot.
I like the L1 a lot.
Yeah.
It's very good. And here's a key thing about it that's special. You can go to green card with the L1 visa eventually.
That's very powerful. You're right. Yeah, the E2 you cannot, right? You can keep on renewing that E2 as long as you're involved in the business, but the L1 is the one that'll get you towards that green card.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's carry on to other considerations. I've got here, what about somebody who doesn't want to necessarily, own a business or have that kind of money? What if someone is just in the hotel business? They're part of it and they've got a degree in hotel management. They're from Canada, say, what can they do?
There you have it. It's a TN visa under the free trade agreement for such a person. But the degree has to be at least 2 years. They have to have studied for at least 2 years. But if you have a hotel management or hospitality management degree with at least 2 years of study, you are eligible to take any job as a hotel manager or restaurant manager in the United States. And that's another way of going down. That's for 3 years, and they're renewable for 3-year increments as well.
And that one is also at the border, isn't it? You can go to the border as long as you have that job offer in hand, you have your original degree off the wall. I know people are like, what? But that is true. You need to have your original degree and you have to have that job offer in hand, and then you could get a TN visa right at the border, no?
Exactly right. It's very good for those who have the degree.
Okay, so there we have it. We've got the E2, the L1, and if you're just in the business and you end up taking a hotel management degree, you can also go down and work in the United States in the hotel. Andy, any other thoughts on our coverage here of immigration work visas for Patels buying hotels in the United States?
One other one, which is if you've got a lot of money to invest, you can get a green card through an EB-5, $800,000 investment, but that's another story, and they should contact me if they want to talk about that. But I'll be happy to talk to any Patels who are interested in getting a hotel in the United States. We do that all the time. We're very good at it, and we'd be happy to help.
Excellent. All right, Andy, U.S. And Canadian immigration lawyer, thank you very much for this, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Sean. Take care.